Hello, I am Ryan.
Hello, I am Amy. Welcome to Listen to English Podcast.
Today's episode is about something that I think is super important for anyone who's trying to improve their English skills, and that is how to train your brain to think in English.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of us get stuck in this cycle of translating everything in our heads before we speak, and honestly, it makes speaking English so much harder than it needs to be.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. It appears that a lot of learners rely on that translation process, thinking in their native language first and then trying to convert it to English.
Right.
But that back and forth takes time and it can make your speech sound hesitant. And honestly, it's exhausting for your brain. Native English speakers, they don't translate in their heads, they just think in English.
Exactly. So imagine if we could just bypass that whole translation step.
Yeah.
Our English would flow so much more naturally, and I think we'd find ourselves making fewer mistakes too. So today let's talk about how we can actually train our brains to think in English. To make it a more automatic process, what do you think is a good starting point for someone who wants to start thinking in English?
Well, it appears that one of the most effective ways to start is by incorporating English into your everyday life, even in simple ways. It's about building those foundational blocks, like a house. Start by simply naming things around you in English, like table, chair, book, phone, those
Right.
basic everyday objects.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like creating little English labels for everything you see.
Yeah.
And as you get comfortable with that, you can start describing what you're doing throughout the day in English, like I'm making breakfast, I'm walking to work, I'm reading a book. Just simple sentences to keep that English flowing in your mind.
Absolutely. Studies show that incorporating self-talk into your routine is a powerful technique. So instead of just passively going through your day, actively narrate your actions in English.
Yeah,
It might feel a bit strange at first,
sure.
but the more you do it, the more natural it will become.
It's like having a constant internal dialogue in English. And while we're on the topic of self-talk, what are your thoughts on asking yourself questions in English?
Hmm.
Like, what should I wear today? Or what am I going to have for dinner tonight? It seems like that could be a good way to keep your brain engaged in English, even when you're not in a conversation.
Yes, asking yourself questions is a fantastic way to practice thinking in English. Not only are you formulating those questions in English, but you're also coming up with the answers.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be complicated questions. It can be as simple as, what am I looking forward to today? Or what am I grateful for?
And all of this helps us move away from that habit of translating in our heads, which, as we talked about earlier, can be a real fluency killer. Do you have any other tips on how we can break free from that translation trap?
It appears that one of the most important things is to try and think in English directly. For example, if you can't remember a word in English, don't immediately jump to your native language.
Yeah,
Instead, try to describe it using other English words that you do know. So, for example, if you can't remember the word scissors, you could say the thing you use to cut paper.
right. It's like you are playing a game of charades with yourself,
Yeah.
trying to communicate the idea using the English vocabulary that you do have. It forces you to be more creative with language, and I bet it helps with remembering those words in the long run.
Absolutely.
And what about immersing ourselves in English as much as possible?
Yeah.
Would you say that is a crucial part of training our brains to think in English?
Absolutely. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more your brain becomes accustomed to it. So surround yourself with English as much as possible. Watch movies and TV shows in English. Listen to English music and podcasts. Read English books and articles. And try to find opportunities to speak English with other people.
I think that's so important. It's about creating an English-speaking environment for yourself, even if you're not physically living in an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
So to recap, what we've learned so far thinking in English not only makes us sound more fluent, but it also takes away the mental gymnastics of constantly translating, which I think could be such a relief.
And we've discussed some practical steps like naming things, describing our actions, and asking ourselves questions, all in English, of course. It's amazing how these seemingly small things can add up to make a real difference. Shall we dive into some more specific techniques?
Let's do it. I'm eager to hear more about how we can take this to the next level.
So we've talked about incorporating English into your daily routine with those simple exercises like naming things and describing your actions. But let's explore some more advanced techniques that can really boost your ability to think in English. One technique that I find incredibly helpful is visualization.
Visualization, that's an interesting one. I've heard about it in other contexts like sports psychology, but how does it apply to language learning?
Well, it appears that visualization can actually help us solidify our thoughts in English. It's like creating a mental movie in your head, but with English narration. So let's say you're planning a trip. Instead of thinking about it in your native language, try to visualize the entire trip in English.
Okay.
Picture yourself at the airport, ordering food, asking for directions, all in English. Imagine those conversations, those interactions all playing out in your mind.
That's fascinating. It's like you're creating an immersive English experience in your mind
Yeah.
and really engaging multiple senses. I can see how that would be more powerful than just passively thinking about something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips on making those visualizations more vivid and effective?
Studies show that the more detail you can add to your visualization, the better. Engage all your senses. What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel? For example, if you're visualizing that trip, imagine the bustling airport, the smell of coffee, the feel of the sun on your skin, even the taste of the local food. And as you get more comfortable, start adding dialogue to your mental movie. Imagine yourself having conversations in English with the people you meet.
Wow, that's powerful. It's like you're rehearsing for real-life situations in the comfort of your own mind. And speaking of rehearsing, I think journaling is another technique that can help us strengthen our ability to think in English. What are your thoughts on that?
It appears that journaling is a fantastic way to practice expressing your thoughts in written English. And you don't have to be a novelist to benefit from it. Start simple. Maybe write a few sentences about your day, your goals, your dreams. It's about getting into the habit of formulating those thoughts in English.
And I imagine it helps to focus on different aspects of the language, too. Like when you are writing, you are more conscious of grammar, vocabulary, and sentence structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you are actively flexing those English muscles.
Exactly. And as you become more comfortable with writing, you can start experimenting with different styles. Maybe you write a short story, a poem, a song, or even just a funny dialogue between two characters. The possibilities are endless.
I love it. It's about finding what works for you and what keeps you engaged. It seems like there are so many creative ways to incorporate English into our lives and really make it a part of who we are.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that this journey of learning to think in English, it's not always easy. There will be times when you feel frustrated or stuck, times when you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to be patient with yourself, to celebrate your progress, and to remember that every small step you take is bringing you closer to your goal.
That's such a great point. It's about shifting our mindset from focusing on perfection to focusing on progress. And on that note, I think a lot of learners struggle with the fear of making mistakes. It can be really paralyzing. What advice do you have for people who are struggling with that fear?
It appears that the fear of making mistakes is completely natural, especially when we're learning something new. But it's important to remember that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. In fact, they are essential. It's through our mistakes that we learn and grow.
That's so true. I remember when I first started learning English, I was so afraid of making mistakes that I barely spoke at all. But then I realized that everyone makes mistakes, even native English speakers. It's part of being human.
Absolutely. And the more we embrace those mistakes as learning opportunities, the less power they have over us. So my advice to anyone who's feeling afraid is to just keep practicing, keep speaking, keep putting yourself out there. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become and the more confident you'll feel.
I love that. It's about shifting our focus from fear to action, from worrying about making mistakes to simply enjoying the process of learning and communicating. And speaking of action, what are some practical steps we can take to create more opportunities to practice thinking and speaking in English?
Well, one option is to find language partners or join online language exchange communities where you can interact with other English learners or even native English speakers. It's a great way to practice your speaking skills in a safe and supportive environment.
And with the rise of online platforms, it's easier than ever to connect with people from all over the world. You can literally practice speaking English from the comfort of your own home. What other options do we have?
Don't underestimate the power of self-practice. Talk to yourself in English, record yourself reading articles or stories, or have imaginary conversations in your head. It might sound silly, but it really does help.
I think it's all about finding ways to make English a natural part of our daily lives, to integrate it into our routines and our thought processes. And it doesn't have to be a chore. It can be fun. We can watch our favorite movies, listen to our favorite music, read our favorite books, all in English.
Exactly. It's about finding what you enjoy and using it as a tool to learn and grow. And as you continue on this journey, remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. There will be ups and downs, plateaus, and breakthroughs. But the most important thing is to stay persistent, stay curious, and to never give up on your dream of thinking in English.
That's such an inspiring message. We've explored so many fantastic techniques and ideas so far, from simple exercises like naming objects to more advanced strategies like visualization and journaling.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that consistency is crucial.
Yeah.
It's not about cramming in hours of study, but rather about weaving English into the fabric of our daily lives.
It appears that even small, consistent efforts can yield remarkable results over time. It's like tending to a garden. A little bit of nurturing each day helps it flourish. That's such a beautiful analogy. It reminds us that language learning is a continuous journey, not a destination. There will be seasons of rapid growth and moments of quiet contemplation, but the key is to stay engaged and keep moving forward.
Now, as we approach the final leg of our exploration, let's talk about a topic that often sparks both excitement and apprehension: finding opportunities to practice speaking English.
Practice is undeniably the cornerstone of any skill development, and language is no exception. It's where we get to put all our accumulated knowledge and honed techniques into real-world action.
But finding those opportunities to practice, especially for those who aren't living in an English-speaking environment, can feel like navigating a labyrinth.
That's true, but thankfully there are pathways we can carve out. One avenue is to join online language exchange communities or connect with language partners through various platforms.
It's a fantastic way to break free from geographical limitations and engage in meaningful conversations with fellow learners or even native speakers from across the globe. The supportive and interactive nature of these communities can truly foster a sense of camaraderie and shared learning.
And let's not forget about the wealth of resources available right at our fingertips. With the ever-evolving landscape of virtual communication, finding a language partner has never been easier.
Absolutely. And while we're on the subject of accessibility, let's not overlook the power of local connections. Many cities host English conversation groups or events where individuals can gather to practice their speaking skills in a relaxed and social setting.
It's a wonderful way to immerse yourself in the language, forge new friendships, and experience the joy of spontaneous conversation.
And for those moments when a language partner or a group setting isn't readily available, remember the incredible potential of self-practice.
Right.
Talk to yourself in English, record yourself reading articles or stories, or even deliver presentations to an imaginary audience.
It might sound unconventional, but it's a surprisingly effective way to build confidence, refine pronunciation, and get comfortable with the rhythm and flow of spoken English.
Now, Ryan, as we wrap up this episode, I think it's important to address a common hurdle that many learners encounter: the plateau phase, those periods where progress seems to stall, leaving us feeling discouraged.
Ah, yes, the dreaded plateau. It's that feeling of hitting an invisible wall, like our efforts are no longer yielding tangible results.
It's a natural part of the learning process, a testament to the fact that language acquisition isn't always linear. Everyone experiences it at some point, a reminder that growth isn't always immediate or apparent.
But it can be incredibly disheartening, especially when we've been diligently putting in the time and effort.
Indeed, but it's crucial to remember that plateaus are not indicative of failure. They're simply pauses, opportunities for consolidation and recalibration.
It's like climbing a mountain. There will be steep sections that demand intense effort and flatter stretches that allow for rest and reflection.
Precisely. And when we encounter those plateaus, it's important to be patient with ourselves, to revisit our learning strategies, and to explore new approaches.
Sometimes it's just a matter of taking a short break, allowing our minds to absorb and process everything we've learned, like a field lying fallow to rejuvenate the soil.
And remember, progress isn't always visible. Sometimes it's happening beneath the surface, like the roots of a tree deepening their hold before branching out and reaching for the sky.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So to all our listeners out there who might be feeling stuck or discouraged, trust the process, keep nurturing your language skills, and celebrate every milestone, no matter how small.
And as we conclude this episode, I want to leave you with a final thought. Learning to think in English is a transformative journey. It's an investment in yourself, a gift that unlocks new avenues of communication, understanding, and connection.
It's a journey that stretches beyond language itself, fostering a sense of confidence, adaptability, and a broadened perspective on the world.
For all our listeners, we encourage you to embrace the challenge, to savor the moments of discovery, and to remember that the ability to think and express yourself fluently in another language is a remarkable accomplishment.
And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of how to train your brain to think in English. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep those English thoughts flowing.
Goodbye, everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.